You are bold, you are fearless, you are radiant. It's time to unlock the diamond from within. BFF, we rise above, stronger together, we shine with love. Faith unshaken, hearts on fire, fearless souls, we're reaching high.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the BFF Empowerment Podcast. I am your host, Blaque Diamond, and today with me on the Women on the Rise segment of the BFF Empowerment Podcast, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Miss Leah Johnson. Welcome, Miss Leah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. So, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself before we jump into everything?
Yeah. So quick bio is my life has been a journey from politician to painter. So I had a 25-year career in politics, and about a year and a half ago released that entire thing, the need for success, all of the addictions and all of the things that came with that, and leaned into my own transformational journey of being an artist, author, and now retreat leader. So,
Oh, I love it. So, someone into politics. Were you always into politics, like as a young adult, or is that just something your career path just took you on?
no, so when I started my career, I started when I was 14 years old, working on campaigns locally where I grew up. And up until when I decided to quit it all, I had worked on a campaign, something on a ballot every November since I was 14 years old. So for
Hmm.
25 years, I was deeply engaged in all things, from a national level to a local level. Early in my career was national, and then I moved home and was even a local city councilor myself, a local elected official. So I kind of did the whole thing. It
Oh,
was
wow. Wow. So, how did you like it? I mean, I know that you just, turned away from it. Like, was it very stressful or was it, I'm pretty sure politics is stressful, but like your journey, like, was it something you enjoyed?
I mean, obviously, like I very much so early on. I think my motivation was I have still that hasn't changed is this overwhelming desire to change the world, right? To make
Hmm.
an impact, to do good or better or shift things in a way that makes things better for people. And so politics early on seemed like a great, way to go to help fulfill that desire.
Hmm.
But I think with anything, as you get deeper into it and understand kind of the systems and the structures, what I really came to understand as I started to heal my own trauma was that I needed to heal my own trauma first, and then I could help heal the collective, impact the collective trauma. But my first book, Finding Fantastic Joy, that I published back in 2022, really kind of flipped politics on its head. And it was about how you build a self-advocacy campaign. Because what I realized is I had spent a career building campaigns, advocacy campaigns for everything else and everyone else but myself. And
Hmm.
what I really needed to do was lean into my own journey first. And from there, as I've strengthened and transformed, then really empowering others to embark on that healing journey. So it
Hmm.
was a process.
I love it. And what and who have you worked with on your campaign journey?
So I worked on the national level, like I said. So I did all sorts of things back in college. I worked for the Kerry campaign up in New Hampshire, did some work for the Obama campaign, worked for a consulting firm in DC for a while, and we did a lot of national issue campaigns around, this was back in the early 2000s, around Social Security and the Iraq War, and then from there came home and worked locally. So it became for
Mhm.
me more nonpartisan stuff, more about community building and how we bridge the gaps. And so, local elected officials, at least in Colorado where I live, are nonpartisan races. So I really tried to lean into that idea of how do we build community? How do we build the infrastructure and the things we need to ensure that everyone in a community is able to rise and be seen and get the things they need. So.
Okay, love it. So you did mention that you published your first book, so you're also an author. So what are some of your other books outside of Finding Joy about?
Yeah, so I'm working on my second book right now. It's actually in developmental edit. It's got a working title. The title changes. You know how
Trust
that.
me, I understand. I'm an author too.
Yes. So anywhere from politician to painter, really, but more practical tools of my spiritual journey and how leaning into the power of creativity allowed for that transformation, as well as releasing, some of those power overstructures, some of the patriarchal things that kept me really disconnected from myself.
Mhm,
Also recognizing through the book talks about recognizing like the manufactured disconnection that we have here in the United States that I think really allows or makes it difficult, especially for women to connect to, who they are as their at their core. I felt for a
mhm,
long time like I was living a mismatched life, like I didn't authentically speak my truth. And so
mhm,
how do we shift that to where we empower each other as women to really speak our truth and lean into that authentic self? So
mhm. Gotcha. So I also understand that you are a mother.
I
How
am.
has your career journey impacted your, relationship with your children and your feelings as a mother?
Yeah. So I would flip that question and say, how have my children impacted that journey? Because
Mhm,
um, you know, early on in my career, being like I talk about in my book, this most successful ever. Like in politics, it was the next success, the next drive. There was a point in my career that I was in an incredibly dark place. Was suffering from chronic PTSD, depression. I had my child while serving on city council, and I had, postpartum depression, and then this overwhelming need to prove something. And then when inevitable failures came, alcohol would fill the void. And so I was in a really dark place, and so much so that I even tried, to take my own life. And
mhm,
I realized at that point that my career, that this idea of proving something was literally eating me alive. And if I
mhm,
didn't change something, not only was I going to perpetuate cycles of generational trauma and addiction, if I was successful in taking my own life, I would make it worse. And
mhm,
so that's when I really leaned into, what was important and what mattered. And being a mother was the most important thing. I mean, being there and changing those cycles was what was just calling to me and an opportunity. And so I chose different. And
mhm,
about 6 years ago, that's when I really started leaning into this transformation. And at that point, I withdrew from my reelection campaign very publicly
mhm,
and said, I need to be here. I need to be here to be a mother. I need to be here to be the person who can inspire and be there to listen and support and create help shape, I guess, these amazing
mhm,
little humans that I get the privilege of shepherding through this life. And so yeah, so they were really the linchpin for changing everything and
mhm.
recognizing what matters most and on this journey of finding fantastic joy, as I call it.
Definitely. Yeah, kids definitely help you to, prioritize, find what's priority in your life because what you do affects them. And these little people are depending on you to make the right decisions and do the right things for their welfare. So it definitely takes a lot of sacrifice and just prioritizing that your children, what they see, everything you do, they see, they watch, they pay attention to, and they notice more than you think they do.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Like with kids, they respond to what you do, not what you say, right? So if
Hmm.
I wanted to change something, I needed to change literally everything, right? Who I was, how I showed up, where the elements of joy and where I found that in life, all of those things. Like I didn't want to be a demonstration of those cycles of trauma and addiction. And so,
Hmm.
you know, I leaned in and changed everything.
Yes, good job. Congratulations on that. Because addiction is a hard thing to overcome. A lot of people, they start great and then they fall off and then they start great and then they start, so the fact that you were able to overcome, alcoholism and alcohol addiction is fantastic.
Well, and it's when we talk about it, I make it was not easy. Like
Oh yeah, definitely.
it,
Yeah.
it was so hard. And I would even say like, the alcohol was one thing, but that addiction to success was so consuming. And in fact, when I wrote the press release to withdraw from my reelection campaign, which was I will still say to this day, the hardest thing I have ever done in my entire life, and actually sent it out. All those secondary, alcohol, the secondary addiction, they just really kind of went away. Like, because once I let go or started to really significantly let go of this, like, desire and addiction to get approval and
Hmm.
stop people pleasing, it's amazing how those like secondary addictions or kind of like symptom type things really went away for me. And so, I really lean into that story because it was so powerful understanding how much that had a grip on my life, and when I released that, how it
Hmm.
allowed me to shift everything. So
Okay. And so you did mention that you suffered from PTSD and trauma. Were they things that you experienced as a child, or was it something from adulthood?
it was a combination of both. So, I think that the addiction to success idea that I talk about really came from uh, a childhood of living in a space where nothing I did was good enough, and I had to
Hmm.
keep improving myself. And, by the time I was in high school, I was student body president and captain of the debate team and captain of the golf team and, honor student and got a scholarship to prestigious universities and all the things. And it was never enough. And
Hmm.
so like that trauma, I think really like then I internalized, and that's really how it shaped my need to get these external accolades to feel value and love and all of the things that we genuinely seek as humans. And then I was sexually assaulted in college, and so that trauma, I think the combination of it really made my 20s pretty hard.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah. But one thing I would say that, to my transformational journey about that trauma is I had always leaned into art and creativity as a way to process my trauma. So
Yes.
early on, I started, journaling and doodling and coloring and doing all of the things. And I have, dozens of journals that are full of color and clippings and poems and quotes and my words and just a way to process all of those things. And so it's something that I've always leaned into. But as I really started to say to myself, what gifts do I have and what can I bring to the world? That's when I realized, learning the language around intentional creativity, or, medicine painting or spiritual painting, or using those as tools to help facilitate and empower others through healing has been really powerful. And so, I'm grateful for that part of my journey and the fact that I've always been able to lean into that as a way of
Hmm.
healing. And now it's, a way of life. So,
Definitely. Um, Me myself, I've endured a lot of trauma as well from childhood. And yes, writing and drawing were my avenues of escape. Like that was my therapy to kind of, you know, express what I was feeling internally, but I felt like I couldn't voice how I felt. So, yes, writing and drawing were some things that I did to, express myself because, yeah, I felt like I didn't have a voice or I didn't have a way to say what was on my mind. And yeah, that's carried me into adulthood. Not the art part aspect of it, in a way, yes. But I do still, of course, write. Like I've self-published 14 books. So writing is definitely has always been something that I've leaned into when it comes to expressing myself, whether it's through poetry, whether it's through stories, children's books. That's kind of how I express what I'm going through or what I feel like I can't say.
yeah, that's amazing and beautiful. Congratulations on all.
Thank you.
But I think you speak to that, like this thing that's inside of us as humans, like, which is
Hmm.
this desire to create, like, and I think oftentimes in our society, like, we're told if you create something, there has to be a goal, right? Like, there has to
Hmm.
be an outcome. But when we lean into the power of creativity just to create for that purpose, and
Hmm.
for ourselves, for our healing, for hope. And then also, I mean, leaning into the scientific part of it, right? So
Hmm.
it's literally taking the energy of those emotions and that trauma and turning it into something else that
Yes.
creates beauty or, allows a release or creates that energy shift in us that then opens that within us that allows that transformation, right? And so that's a
Yes.
beautiful thing. And so I think it's amazing that you've linked into it so much too. Like
Yeah, even like my significant other, so for me, my art is kind of like my hobby is building with Legos. So a lot of times when I'm feeling, stressed or just have things on my mind, like I go and build. So he's got to learn that, okay, what's wrong? You're building with Legos. What's going on? And I'm like, oh, I just want some time to myself. I just got a lot on my mind, but I just want to be creative right now. I just want that time to, sort out my feelings, sort out my thoughts, and then, when I'm ready, I'll talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And really, getting your brain and your body and your spirit in that space of like flow that
Mm-hmm.
allows you to just then reconnect with yourself. And I mean, for me, it's then reconnecting with my higher power, like
Yes.
whatever that is for you. But for me, it's the divine feminine. But like that connection, then like I then feel restored in ways that
Yes.
restore me.
Definitely. So, yes, I do want to dive into a little bit more about your spiritual journey and your path and how you came to discover what fits for you spiritually because everyone has their own spiritual path and their own journey, whether it's belonging to a specific religion or you're just a spiritual person or whatever that faith means for you. How did you discover what aligned with how you are?
Yeah. And I think it's so important, like you said, that everyone has their own journey and I always say there are no rules, there is no there's
Hmm.
right. Like we all have our own journey, and to find that connection for yourself, for me, was what started to shift everything. And so, early in my life, I was pretty spiritual. I mean, I would even called myself an atheist for a long time. And late in my 20s, I went on my first spiritual journey to Teotihuacan, Mexico. And I was it was really that stretch in my life that I was in a really dark place, and I stayed there for a good while. But what it did is it cracked open something inside of me and shifted an awareness to the
Hmm.
fact that, I had been told kind of that spirituality came in like beige packages, or that um, it was ordained. Like someone had to tell me what it looked like or how I could access it.
Mhm.
And that first spiritual journey where I began to build a relationship with, it started through Guadalupe and Tonantzin, who is the the Mother Earth, the great goddess that's of Central America. But what I began to understand is spirituality could look like whatever it is that I connected with. And for
Mhm.
me, that was feminine and bright colors and things that I'd always felt like I connected with and I wanted to, but I didn't oftentimes have the language or the words or even the knowledge of what existed beyond what I was told, right? And I was
Mhm.
always a seeker, but sometimes you have to push your boundaries of seeking to find something outside of that, right? And so
Yes.
that's really what that first journey did for me. And then over the course of years, and I was describing it the other day as it was almost like this parallel journey to my really like trauma ridden cycle addiction cycle journey, is like at the exact same time I was traveling this spiritual development journey. And over the years, I'd access it a little bit more, but then I'd go months, sometimes in or those early years and not really engage with it much, but it was always there, like
Mhm.
slowly percolating under the surface to remind me that there was something more, that there was something that I could connect with that felt good and empowering and restorative.
Mhm.
So, over the years, I just slowly accessed that a little bit more and a little bit more. And I really think that that was the thing as it elevated and it started, I kind of think of a graph as it started to go up and the trauma and stuff started to go
Going
down.
down. Yeah.
It was like that point where it crossed was where everything changed, right?
Mhm.
And so it became the dominant force in my life, and my trauma became, it will always be a part of me. That story is me, but it's
Mhm.
not what defines me. It's not what, you know, it's not who I am
Mhm.
any longer. And so I think
Exactly.
that that's, the spiritual part of my journey has been really critical to that transformation and finding tools and ways to connect with that. And again, for me, that's creativity,
Mhm.
and ceremony and nature and being amongst other women in circles of women who are seeking that level of empowerment too. Like that's my church, for lack of a better word. That's my
Yes.
community. So,
Yes, I love it. So during this, when a lot of times when people have like endured trauma, everyone has their own healing, rituals or whatever it is that you choose to do to help with healing. A lot of people think when you've endured trauma, you've healed from it, it's gone, it never enters or impacts your life ever again. Do you believe that?
uh, I mean, no and yes. Um, I don't think I think it changes, right?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm,
I think about my relationship with my mother, who she passed away 12 years ago. And her time here on earth we didn't have the greatest relationship. And it wasn't a loving and nurturing relationship that I needed as
mhm,
a child and even into my 20s. It wasn't what it what I desired or what I needed. But at the same time, I mean, she had lived her own trauma journey and
mhm,
she was doing the best she could. And there was points in my life where I did not see that. I did not recognize that. I just hated her. I was
mhm,
angry, and part of so much of that, all of those addictions, all of that was I was carrying the trauma and addiction cycles that she had lived and that my
mhm,
grandmother had lived and her mother and all of the matriarchal trauma that had been passed down, and I was living that out. And then also, just trying to survive and a lot of that was just through anger, and I was so angry. And over the years, as I've leaned into that healing space with curiosity and redefined what that relationship looks like, not just with my
Mhm.
mother, but all of my maternal ancestors, it's allowed for a different understanding, right? Like we
Mhm.
were all carrying it, and
Yes.
now we get to change that story. And so I don't really look at my healing as just healing me. It's healing past generations and future generations, and but it's a conversation that I'm constantly having with spirit and with my guides and with my ancestors and those maternal ancestors specifically, because it's about healing that. And so
Mhm.
does it return? Absolutely. Like
Yes.
over and over and over again. But now I am in such a different place and I have such a different understanding that I don't arrive at that conversation with anger and
Mhm.
shit. I arrive at that conversation with love and grace and understanding. And so when it does arise, it's softer and I can work through it in a way that is healthier and
Mhm.
not with unhealthy addictions. And
Yes, that's how I truly knew that I had healed from my trauma because before, like, whenever I would talk about it or someone would ask me about it, I would get emotional. I would cry. My voice would get shaky. I was emotionally impacted by just the thought or the conversation about the things that I had, went through. But
yeah,
when I really knew I was healed was when I was able to talk about it and not feel any type of way or feel sadness or emotional. And, a lot of times people say now that I talk about the trauma that I went through, like so matter of factly, like it happened to someone else, but it's actually my story. And I'm like, that's because I'm healed. When I wasn't healed, I wouldn't be able to have these conversations.
yeah. And I think about how I've, for whatever reason, really leaned in and pushed myself to do that. And after I published my book, which was very much about that story,
Hmm.
it's one thing to write your story. It's another thing to stand up and speak your story.
Hmm.
I remember the first time that I did that, like I couldn't get some of the words even out of my mouth. Like I couldn't get addiction. I couldn't get suicide. I couldn't get, even talk about the trauma that was with my mother or alcoholism or any of those things. Like I had a hard time saying those words, but I stood up and failed miserably anyway trying to do it, right? And and then like just recently I did a TED talk about this kind of same thing. It was telling my story and then like five small releases that allow that transformation. But one of the compliments I got was, wow, you just talk about it with so much ease. And I had to laugh because I'm like, it's not always been like that. And it's still not always like that. Like
No.
sometimes I'm in audiences where it feels, I don't know, like it just doesn't come out with that ease. And it's just a process. But I think if we trust ourselves and trust the process,
Mhm.
it and not being afraid of like normalizing it, right? Like I think at
Yes.
some point my desire to normalize my journey has overcome any fear that's associated with sharing my story.
Mhm.
And so like leaning into that desire over and over again to normalize like and and also talk about like what it is to work in patriarchal structures as a young mother and how hard that was, right? Like the
Mhm.
trauma that I have, the addictions, like talking about those things and how they're all interwoven, I think is so important. And so that mission has been taken over any fear that comes with the fact that sometimes it doesn't come out like I want it to.
Exactly. And I've actually had the opposite though. I've always been easy. It's always been easier for me to actually speak on the trauma I went through. But I actually just published my first book, dealing with just one particular part of the trauma that I've been through earlier this year in April.
Oh wow.
And that was the hardest. thing for me to do.
Mm.
It was like so different between, I've interviewed, I've been on podcasts, blogs, TV, all of this, speaking, events and things, but to actually sit down and write a book about something that I've been through that's so traumatic and actually read these words back and realize like this is my story. Like this is me. This isn't just a fictional character that I'm creating. This person is me. Like there was so many emotions I went through writing that book. My experience with sexual abuse and my first domestic violence relationship and just learning that all of this stuff happened to me and it all, stemmed from being abused from a child from my mother. That led me up into these other traumas that I went through because I didn't know any different. I had never known what it was like to be loved.
Mhm.
And it was like the hardest thing. And just, and I even today, like my book is available, in all major platforms and audio. And when I just listened to the audio version of my book, my narrator did an excellent job. Like she brought my story to life. And just listening back, and I'm just like, I can't believe this is my story. Like, it just seems like it's someone else's story. So for me, yeah, that was the hardest part. And now everyone wants to know the other traumas and other part. Like, oh, there has to be more. You ended this book too happily and positive. Like, what happened next? So now I'm actually having to sit down and write the other parts that started my whole traumatic journey. And, it's hard. It's for
Well,
me, it's easier speaking and talking about it than it is writing it.
that's really interesting. And I think first of all, that's beautiful and amazing. And thank you for sharing those stories because that's how, again, we normalize this, right? Like we
Mhm.
just talk about it over and over and over again and let others know that they're not alone. And
Mhm.
as hard as that is, and I do feel some of that like when you write a book and actually I read parts of my book recently to my 12-year-old daughter that I had been kind of holding back until she was a little bit older.
Mhm.
And it was one of those same kind of things, right? Like I'm like, whoa, like I'm so not that person anymore. I'm so
Mhm.
far from that person that reading that and going back it's like a kind of out of body experience. But but again, to your point, like that's how in some ways I know I've healed is because it's not living inside of me anymore. And
Mhm.
writing and speaking and doing art associated with it is what allows it to have a life outside of us that doesn't control us anymore. And so
Exactly.
I think that's beautiful. So
And so
congrats.
with thank you. And I actually won an award for the book this year.
Yay!
An
That's
international I've won awards for my books in the past, but this is the first time I actually won an international award.
great.
And it was
Congratulations.
specifically for a memoir for trauma healing.
Yeah.
And so I've done like, guest appearances. A couple of weeks ago, I just did a live question Q&A for a book club with people who had, read the book and things like that. And it was like a really, really good experience. Like them just being comfortable enough and me being comfortable enough to actually answer those very, very deeply personal questions about, things that, yeah, I endured and I was able to answer them without, breaking down or crying or feeling, any type of way. And I remember the turning point in my life when I realized that what I was holding on to, all of this trauma, was causing me not to have the life that I felt like I deserved, was when I was actually at a church and we were doing a Bible studies lesson. And the
Yeah.
pastor was like, well, I don't have a specific topic for us to talk about today. What do you guys want to talk about? And it was like out of nowhere, this feeling just came over me. And I said, I want to learn how to forgive. And I shocked myself when I said it. I'm like, where did that come from? And it was like everyone gasped. It was like the room was silent. And I was just like, what? And then so he was like, okay. So he started like, flipping through the Bible and reading different scriptures and passages on forgiveness. And it was like as he was reading, I was feeling a weight was lifting off of my shoulders as I just mentally told everyone that who had hurt me and who had had a part in the things that happened to me that I forgave them one by one. And it was like once I left that session that day, it was like from then on, I knew that I could not allow trauma to
Mhm.
dictate my life, to, control, whether I'm happy or not.
I love that so much. That's so beautiful.
And I was
Um,
like, wow. And it's like ever since then, like, yeah, I felt, yes, I've endured more trauma after that, but I learned how to actually heal from it better than I did in the beginning.
yeah, it's really powerful when we give ourselves permission to heal, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like that, and that's I mean, that's what shifts everything is when we finally, like, energetically and spiritually and mentally and emotionally and physically and all of it, like, allow and give ourselves permission to heal, and it shifts everything. And it's, forgiveness, right? Forgiveness of
Mm-hmm.
others, forgiveness of ourselves, and a whole lot of grace. So,
Definitely. And that's why I do this podcast. This is my, not only a platform for me to share my story, but also a platform for others to share their story because you just don't know what someone else is going through. And they may just need to hear that they're not alone and that there's other people who have went through what they're going through and who have come out of it. So that's the whole point of, yeah, the BFF Empowerment Podcast
love
is
it.
to bring that awareness of the different things that we can, go through and that can impact our lives and how you can, just from hearing someone else's story, start that healing journey.
Yes, for sure. So, I love it.
And with everything that you do and your journey, do you have like any type of like projects or like groups or anything that you've created like courses or any type of sessions or anything like that? Do you do any of those things?
Yeah, so I lead women's retreats in Teotihuacan, the place that I started my journey in.
Hmm.
So I started leading retreats there back in 2022. So just taking groups of women. It's the Toltec pyramids. And so really accessing the energy of the ancestors there, the portal there, that is so beautiful and so powerful. And reconnecting to the divine that you connect with, right? Whatever that
Hmm.
is. And then through the power of creativity. So through those retreats during the whole week, while we visit different sites and we go into Mexico City and visit Frida Kahlo's house, who is the mother of the matriarch of intentional creativity and the Tilma of Guadalupe. There is journal and creative prompts the whole time. We paint in the evenings. So it's really, that time to connect and reconnect with yourself and reconnect with your divine. And then also, using the tools of creativity to kind of imprint that transformation.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I do that. I do classes. I live in Colorado, so I do classes, in-person classes here, and in the process of getting an online platform that hopefully should be up in early 2026. So
Oh, wow. I love it. I love it. All right. So we have come to my favorite part of the show where we play What is she thinking? So I'm going to give you five random phrases. You just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. You don't have to think too hard about it. Just something fun to kind of get to know you.
very great. I love it.
All right. So your first phrase is spirituality means
Connection to hope.
I love it. Second one is climb the highest mountain.
To find what is inside you.
Okay. Give me a reason to.
Find joy.
I love it. Let's see. You can't have hot chocolate without.
Marshmallows.
Hmm. All right, your last one. If I were a flower.
Oh, so many. I would be a rose.
I love it. All right. Well, are there any websites, any social media, where your books can be found that any you would like to leave the listeners with who would want to, contact you?
Yeah. So my website is www.findingfantasticjoy.com. Pretty easy there. And then I'm on Instagram as Finding Fantastic Joy and Facebook and LinkedIn as Leah Johnson. So you can find me there. So, and you can check out my artwork on those sites as well as, just general thoughts and my book. So, and the retreats and the class.
Yes.
Oh, they're all
Well,
there.
well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I wish you nothing but the best in all of your endeavors. I definitely will keep an eye on those online classes because unfortunately I live in North Carolina.
Yes. No, no.
So coming to Colorado, which I mean I
Yeah.
have family there. But yeah, the likelihood of coming anytime soon. But yeah, I'll do like online platforms. So yeah, if I can get courses and classes through an online platform, I definitely love to do that. So I
Yeah.
will definitely keep an eye on and follow you on social media so I can see when that is available.
That sounds like a great plan. I hope that we can connect further. So,
Yes, ma'am. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the BFF Empowerment Podcast. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcasting platform at BFF Empowerment Podcast. You can also follow us on social media. We are on YouTube, Facebook, Threads, TikTok, and Instagram as BFF Empowerment Podcast. Be sure to check out our website at bffempowermentpodcast.com to see the latest episodes. Also, if you would like to be featured as a Women on the Rise guest on the BFF Empowerment Podcast, send us an interest email to bffempowerment@gmail.com. If you enjoy listening to the show, feel free to leave us a review or a rating on your favorite podcasting platform to help others discover their next favorite empowerment podcast. And thank you so much for listening. See you next time.
BFF, we rise above, stronger together.